Hey guys, Carl from Purple Moose Plays. Today I'm going to be taking a preview look at a prototype copy of Coloma New Prospects, the upcoming new expansion for Coloma, from designer Jonny and publisher Final Frontier Games. This is one that I was really excited to get the chance to take a look at because Coloma is a game that I enjoyed quite a bit as a multiplayer game, but was originally warned off by the designer himself not to really bother with the solo mode because it wasn't really all that great. So this is one that I've been very curious and desperately waiting to be able to play solo. And now with the expansion, on top of all of the new things that the expansion is adding, it also brings in a new solo mode that's able to be played both with the original base game as well as all of the new expansion content. Disclaimer, as you expect as a preview copy, I was given this prototype from the publisher, but as always I will do my best to give you my own honest opinion on everything I've seen in the prototype. With that said, let's head down to the table to see how this one plays with the new solo mode, and then I'll meet you back up here to let you know what I think. Before we get started, I just want to mention here that this video will be using a deluxe copy of the original base game. So you will see lots of components that are quite a bit fancier than the actual retail version of the game, but also the expansion is just a prototype copy, so those components will actually be less good than a normal retail copy of the game. So I just wanted to explain the sort of differences in componentry that you will see on the screen. With that said, to set up a solo game of Coloma with the new Prospects expansion, begin by placing the game board out on the screen. Now I am going to apologize here as well. This game takes up quite a bit of space on the screen, so you're going to see that it fills the screen pretty well. And I apologize for any difficulties in seeing things, but I am a static camera kind of person, so we'll do what we can. Next, I'm going to place the overlay pieces onto the center action space. For the expansion, there is a replacement Barker tile that looks like this. We're going to be using this instead. You'll see there's no signboard anymore. There's a barrel here instead. But you'll also see that I've scribbled some things on here. This has actually changed since they printed this prototype. So this should be $3 one time used to get 2 horses or 2 tents. So I fixed that. That gets placed there in the middle, set to 5. And then overlaying the bust piece like this over that barrel. Then set up the barrels up here at the top. Now because we are playing with the expansion and I mentioned that signboard piece is no longer there, we will remove the 3 signboard barrels. And then I'll give the barrels a shuffle, placing one face up on each of these 4 slots and then a stack face down right here. I'm not going to place them all because you can see this is a big stack, so I'll leave some off camera and place about half of these out on the board. Next, continuing to set up the board in the shootout area here, starting with the first 1848 year, and I'll set this up in just a second. We are going to place out 2 outlaws here, and because we're playing the solo mode, it will set up like a 2-player game. So we're going to be placing 3 gunmen of a non-player color in that location. Next, we need to set up the gold. Again, because we're playing a 1-player game, we will fill in just this section here with gold. And then I will place out this minecart here for gold storage later on. The rest of the gold goes back into the box. Continuing around the board from the gold, we'll fill in this sort of rivers and bridges area, except that now, with the expansion, we are not going to be using rivers. Instead, there will be waterfall tiles. So I'm going to be placing 3 waterfall tiles face up, and then I'll place the rest of them face down right here. And then because I'm playing the solo game, which sets up like a 2-player game, I will place out 1 each of 6 different bridge tiles right down here in the bottom corner. Then continuing around the board, we're going to go down here in the bottom corner. I'm going to start the round marker in 1848 like this. We've already set up the 2 outlaws like it shows right here. And then we're going to place out on this area 1 tile. Now in the base game, there used to be a tile for each year, but in the expansion, the game comes with 3 tiles. And each of these tiles is double-sided. So one side is 1848, the next side is 1849, and then just like the base game, the 3rd year, 1850, uses the one that's printed on the board. So I'm just going to give those a shuffle and take whichever one comes out on top. This one here, setting it to 1848 and placing it right there. And then finally, to finish setup of the board, we are going to be playing with the optional hotels edition, so I'm going to place the hotel cards out on the board. And now that the board is all set up, we transition into setting up the players. But before we do that, there are a couple of things that we need to do to set up for the expansion, and also because we're playing a solo mode, again, which sets up like a two-player mode. Because we're playing solo or two-player, we're going to be using these Buster cards. So I'm going to give those a shuffle for right now. I'm going to set those off down here. Buster is going to be a sort of a dummy player, and I'm going to set the Buster figure right there as well. And then a new addition for the expansion is that there is always going to be one Pioneer. In a multiplayer game or a big player game, that would be Buster, but because we need Buster as Buster, I'm simply going to add one Pioneer, and it will always be placed on this action wheel, one space after the Barker tile, and that'll move around as the Barker tile moves. So for this playthrough, I'm just going to use this red player character, and you see here, we already used red, so red is sort of our extra color in this game. So now I need to set up both myself and the AI player area. So to start, we're each going to take a player board, and I'll place those out over here to the side. These player boards are double-sided, but for the purposes of this review, I'm simply going to be using the A side of the boards. And then because we are playing with the new expansion and we are using the waterfalls instead of the rivers, we need to add this waterfall board extension as well to each of the two boards. And that simply slots on just like that. So I'll add those to both of the mats like that. And I just want to make sure there's enough space above that to place out our rivers or waterfalls and bridges. And then next, I'll explain this when we get into gameplay, but each of these waterfall boards has a track that runs along it. So I'm going to place a marker out on the track for each of us. Next, we're going to decide on player color. I will, of course, be playing as purple, and I'm going to assign the AI for green. Now, for the expansion, you should have an additional 2 dudes on top of what comes in the base game, but my prototype doesn't have any additional dudes, so I'm going to do an extra 2 blue dudes for me and an extra 2 yellow dudes for the AI. But for each of us, we're going to start with 2 dudes and 1 tent in our lodge, or our sort of available resource area. And then the rest of our dudes and tents will get placed just off to the side as a general supply. Then we will each take 1 Pioneer figure. I do have some of the deluxe figures mixed in here, but for this game we will be using these 2. So I'll get this purple guy, and he takes this green guy like that. Then we will place out our scoring markers out on the 0 spot on the score track up here in the top left corner. And we each place our covered wagon piece in Coloma. Like that. For this solo mode, I will start with the first player marker, so I will put that right there. And then to finish our starting resources, we each get $2, 1 gold, and 1 horse. So there's the $2 and horses, and it's worth mentioning that all gold in the game comes from this area and never from the box. So we will each get 1 gold from this area like that. And then finally, to set up regular setup for our player areas, we're going to take the new decks of cards from the expansion, having 20 cards instead of 16 cards, and we'll shuffle those out and place them on our board. And then for the AI, we're simply going to take the top 4 cards of that deck and place them face down off to the side of the board. And for me, I'm going to draw the first 6 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to keep 4 of those, discarding 2, but I'll do that after I explain to you how the game works so you understand exactly why I'm making the decisions that I'm making. But we also need to complete setup of the solo character. And to do that first, the solo character will use a die. I'll set that there. And we're going to be making use of these location tiles. So I'm going to mix up these location tiles, shuffle them up, and place the stack face up. And I will do that now. I just want you to see on camera that the first location says Auburn. I'm not sure you're going to be able to read that once I set it on the board, but I'll just set it off down here. And then finally, using gold from the supply, not from the board. This is just sort of extra markers for this solo character and sort of decision-making locations. I'll place 1 gold over here by their deck of cards, 1 gold here next to the top bridge, and then I'm going to place 1 gold next to the barrels. If I place it to the right side, that's sort of an easier game, and if I place it to the left side, that'll be a harder game. So or a more aggressive game, at least according to the rules. I will place 1 gold right there. And then, sorry, in checking to make sure everything was set up, I did forget one more thing. For the expansion, we're not going to be using these towns as printed. Instead, we're going to be placing these overlay tiles on them, which one side has 4 meeples and some kind of action, and the other side has 2 meeples and a place tent action. So I'm going to shuffle these up and place out 1 in each of these 4 towns face up, means the 4 meeples and an action side face up. And with that, we are all set up for a game of Coloma, playing solo against the AI, and of course now using the New Prospects expansion as well. So I'm going to do my best to sort of walk you through the game, but there's a whole lot going on in here, and it will become much clearer as you see me play the game. But let me sort of walk you first through the first turn / first round, and then I'll fill in the details as needed as I go along. So a game of Coloma is going to be playing out basically over 3 rounds. Tracked here, 1848, 1849, and 1850. And each of those rounds is going to play out over 5 turns, as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the center action wheel. And at the start of every turn, we're going to begin by making sure that this X is set on that sort of extra piece here to the left of the Barker tile, and then rotating the whole thing clockwise 1 space. And again, this new pioneer that's on here will continue to get moved as well as we do that. The next thing you're going to do is check this bonus action right here. Now, in the expansion, this is new. Some of these used to be optional. Now in the expansion, you must take part in every event. These actions are called events. In every event as you go around. So right now, this says that both myself and the AI will get 2 dudes, is what we call the meeples in this game, added to our lodge or sort of available supply. So 2 for me. And again, 2 for the AI, like that. Now, you'll see this come out as we get into gameplay, but you'll see that there are tents here. If we have a tent in that location when it's triggered, it will double whatever it says. So in this case, if we had a tent, we would be getting 4 meeples. And let me just quickly walk you through all of the different events. That one gets me 2 dudes. This gets 1 gold. This is 2 cards drawn from my deck. And again, I will get back to that in just a second. This is 2 bucks. And this means that I spend 1 gold to get 3 points. And again, if I have a tent at any of those locations, it will be doubled when I activate it. And then we're going to place out our pioneers to choose an action on this wheel that is available to us. And this is one of the big core mechanisms of Coloma, because the way this is going to work is we're all going to place out. And then after they've all been placed out, whichever location has the most pioneers in it is going to bust. And we're going to spin this X to be wherever that location is. And that's going to cause a variety of interesting things to happen. So let me sort of walk you through what all of the available actions are, and then I'll explain what the boom and bust thing means while I'm doing that. Because the bust also adds something new in the expansion that I'm going to have to explain to you as well. So let's take a look at all of the actions. First, on the Barker tile, you see here these 2 actions. Now, I said boom and bust. If the space you're on does not bust, you're going to be taking both of these actions. In the case that it does bust, you will only be taking this top action, or most outside on the ring action of that space. And for the Barker tile, all you're going to be doing is you're going to be able to spend 3 bucks once to buy either 2 horses or 2 tents into your supply. And tents are going to be used to double those abilities as I showed, but also for a scoring mechanism on the map in the corner, which I'll show you in just a second. And the horses are going to be increasing the amount of movement I get when I do move around the map on the board. And this barrel action will simply allow me to choose one of the barrels out here in the display. And that includes these 4 face-up barrels as well as the top barrel that's face down on the stack. If I take the face-down barrel, nothing else happens. But if I take any of these face-up barrels, you will see printed here one outlaw, 2 outlaws, and 2 outlaws. That means if I take that barrel, I have to add that number of outlaws into this shootout for checking at the end of each round. And I'll explain what that means after I get through all of the actions, because that will very much relate to the final action as we discuss. And then as soon as I take a barrel, I will then replace that barrel. And these barrels are simply going to give me a variety of one-time use sort of bonus abilities. For example, this would give me $3. This one lets me take a move action on the board. This one would get me 2 gold, and this one would allow me to build either a bridge or a waterfall using the saw action. And I'll explain that again in just a minute. So that's the Barker action. Next is action space 1. You see a shovel and a wheelbarrow. At the start of the game, if you take those actions, the shovel will get me 2 cards from my deck, as shown here. And the wheelbarrow will get me 1 gold, as shown here. Again, if we bust, we don't get the wheelbarrow action, we'd only get the shovel. And at the start, I say that's all I get because throughout the game, I'm going to be building buildings, and some of those buildings will be marked with shovels and or wheelbarrows. And when I activate that location, I will also be able to do whatever it shows on these cards. For example, if I activate shovel and I've built this building, I will get to take 1 tent into my supply or pay $2 to take 2 tents into my supply. Likewise here, I would be able to draw 2 cards or spend a horse to draw 4 cards. This one you see here is something specifically special in the expansion. Now all of these are special in the expansion because in the base game, these cards are tied directly to a location on that center wheel, but in this case in the expansion, they're all tied to a specific action type, and it doesn't matter how that action type is triggered. Only that when that action type is triggered, you can do whatever it shows on the board. Now I'll explain this one in just a minute when I get back into what busting does special in this game, but let me first explain the rest of the actions. The next action, space 2, is a building bridges or waterfalls. It was building rivers and bridges, but again, the rivers have been replaced with waterfalls in the expansion. And what that means is we have a hammer action and a saw action. Both of those are build, but the resources you're going to spend to do those build actions will be different depending on a hammer or a saw. In the case of a hammer, for a waterfall, you will be spending 2 meeples and $2. For a saw, 2 meeples and 1 gold. So you'll always see that the hammers cost bucks and the saws cost gold. But it's also worth mentioning here that you can always use gold as money, and the amount of money you get for 1 piece of gold is going to be equal to whatever level you're at that has empty spaces. So right now this has 2 empty spaces, this one has no empty spaces. So each gold is worth $3. But as we take gold, the price of gold is going to decrease. But again, we can always spend gold as bucks when necessary. Now to build the bridges, a hammer action takes 3 meeples and $4. A saw takes 3 meeples and 2 gold. And the way that's going to work is, when I build a a waterfall, I choose from one of the 3 available tiles. And we're then going to slot that tile into one of the open slots on our player board. And you'll see that each of these waterfalls has an action on it that's going to happen when we move our location, our sort of bust token onto that location. And this is actually a good opportunity for me to talk about the new sort of use of busting in this expansion. Because one of the things we see here is there's a track on this new waterfall board. And what that means is every time we're at a location that busts, anywhere I have one of these sort of markers, it's going to advance 1 space. And that includes on these cards. If I built this building, I would place a marker right there. And every time I bust, I would move it 1 space to the right. Likewise, on this waterfall track, and I'll try and get it closer for you, I will also be moving 1 space on this track every time I bust. I hope that's focused. So for example, if I moved here on my first bust, I would get 1 free horse. And from there I have a choice. I can sort of head up this way or down over here. And likewise, if already on my first move I had slotted in that first river, you can see here that I'd already have a choice. Instead of going here to the horse, I could move up here to the river, and when I do, I would get to do that action. But assuming I didn't go up to the river, I can also head down this way. Anytime I land at a space that has points, I will simply take those points. But anytime I land at one of these gravestone sites, one of my dudes from my general supply, or from my lodge if I don't have any in my general supply, will get placed there. And that will be negative points at the end of the game. But at the same time, I will activate whatever the location bonus is for that location on my player board. And that's true moving all the way across the board. When we get to this last end piece, if we make it to this spot, any bridges that I have will be worth an additional 3 points at the end of the game. And then as we move down here, each of these spaces is going to flip over one of the waterfall tiles on my board. And what does that mean? Well, you'll see on the back side of a waterfall tile, it shows 1 point per waterfall. So at the end of the game, I will score 1 point per waterfall for each of my waterfalls that has been flipped over. So if I can flip them all over, I'm going to be getting 4 points times 4 waterfalls would be 16 points from flipping those over. In addition, just like the rivers in the base game, at the end of the game I will also be scoring the points printed on my player board for every waterfall location that has been filled in. Now, while we're talking about that bust action, let me come back to this card because I said also when I bust, I'm moving this token 1 space to the right. And what that means is when this ability is activated by activating this action, I will get whatever it shows below the location of that token. So if I've made it all the way down here, then I get $1 plus $1 plus $2 for $4. But as soon as I trigger this action, this token will always slide all the way back to the left. The other thing we can build from that action are these bridges, and each of these bridges is going to give me some kind of special end game scoring. So if we take a look at these two up close, this one gives me 1 point for every $1 I have at the end of the game, up to a total of 16 max. This one would score me 3 points for every barrel I've collected through the game, again up to a total of 15 max. This one gives me 4 points for every dude that's in my graveyard. This one gives me 3 points for every building that I've built. This one gets me 3 points for every tent that I've placed out in one of those locations on the board. And this one gives me 3 points for every horse that I have at the end of the game. And again, also, if I do manage to make it to that spot on the track here, they will in addition give me 3 points per bridge that I've built. The next action on the wheel is another build action, but this time instead of waterfalls and bridges, we'll be building the buildings. And the building cards all have their cost printed right here, but they are all the same. The hammer action is 2 meeples and $2. The saw action is 2 meeples and 1 gold, similar or exactly the same as the waterfalls. And simply when we build it, we're going to be placing it out into our tableau. We will score those points in the corner at the end of the game. And again, each of these is going to give me some special ability that triggers with some other action. So for this one would trigger anytime I place meeples or dudes out on the board. We saw that's the wheelbarrow and the shovel. Some of them will trigger based on movement. Some of them will trigger based on building and so on. The next action is my move action. And in this case, if we have a boom and a bust, we get to move twice. And movement is I'm going to be able to move my covered wagon a number of spaces equal to the number of horses that I have on my player board for 1 move action. The horseshoe spaces on the board will do nothing, but they do count as spaces while moving. Anytime we pass over or land on any of these smaller markers on the board, like 1 gold, 1 card, or 2 meeples, we'll simply do whatever that is. And then for these boom towns, we have an option. If we pass through that boomtown, we will simply take whatever it shows on the left. And in this case, for this expansion, the first time that happens, it will flip over to the other side. But in order to take this right side ability, instead of taking the left side ability, we have to land on that space and stop there. So when we land on the space and stop there, we can choose to either take the left or the right. But if we pass through that location, we can only take the left ability. It's also worth mentioning here that you see these arrows coming out of each of the locations. While we are at one of these boomtowns, if we take a place tent action, which I will explain in just a minute, we will be able to place out tents in the locations that are adjacent to those boomtowns. And it's worth mentioning here that Coloma has no locations adjacent to it. It's also worth mentioning that while moving, we can never double back on our movement. So I could never say, for example, with 2 movement, go 1, 2, and back to Coloma. But if we have 2 move actions, we could do 1, 2, and then on the next move, 1, 2, back into Coloma. Like that is perfectly okay. Also, it's worth mentioning that if there is a wagon that's already on the trail that you're going through, you skip that space as if it wasn't there. So for example, if green moved now, they would go 1, 2 like that instead, skipping over my wagon. The final space out here on the board is the placing action, basically. The boom action here will simply add 1 tent from your general supply into your lodge for use. And then this will allow me to place any number of meeples and any number of tents. And I did just realize by doing this that we forgot to mention one of the other buildings because I'm playing with the hotel. For a hammer action, I can also spend 1 horse and $4, or a saw action, 1 horse and 2 gold to build a hotel. And a hotel, you'll see in just a minute, is another location that I can place out dudes on, and it will score me 8 points at the end of the game. And anytime we build more hotels, we'll simply stack them like this, making a multi-level hotel. All right, so back to the placement action. Placing dudes will allow me to place them either here in the shootout or on any hotels that we have built in our tableau. Placing a dude on a hotel will simply score me 2 points. Placing a dude at the shootout is going to be an end of round sort of bonus check that we are going to do. So I told you that the game plays out over 3 rounds, each of with 5 turns. At the end of those 5 turns, we're then going to check the shootout. And the expansion is going to change things up a bit with the shootout. So let me set up a shootout example so you can see what that might look like. If I had, for example, 2 right there, and the AI had 4 right here, like this, at the end of the shootout, we're going to do this. Sorry, at the end of the round when we check the shootout, we're going to do this. Starting with this first row, or first row here, moving back, each one that we have there is going to shoot and kill 1 outlaw. So in this case, my 2 purple, you know what, let me add another one just so you can see what happens. My 2 purple meeples will shoot 1, 2, and for each outlaw I kill or anyone kills, we score 1 point. So I would score 2 points there. Next we'd move here, red would shoot the next one. Red is a dummy player, they don't score anything. After the outlaws have either been all killed or we've gone through each of the meeples or the dudes that are standing here and there are still outlaws left, then we're going to check this results table. If we've killed all of the outlaws, we'll check this side. And if we haven't killed all of the outlaws, we will check this lost side. And then we're going to see who has the highest number of dudes at the shootout. And they will get the first sort of level. And then the next most will get the second, the next third, and so on. Now the dummy player does count for ranking, but the dummy player is a dummy player, so will not get anything. But each of these levels is going to give me points and then might also give me some kind of ability or some kind of card draw or some kind of other resources. If you see this X that counts as a bust, means all of my bust tracks will move. And anywhere you see these pink dudes, that means that your dudes are dying. So that means from the general supply, that number of dudes, means 1 in this case or 2 in this case, will get placed in the graveyard. And those dudes that are placed in the graveyard at the end of the game will score you negative points based on the number printed on the graveyard, filling from the bottom up. Now, if you do get that bridge that scores off of those graveyard meeples, then that's great because you get 4 points for each of those, not forgetting, but in addition to the negative points that you'd be getting otherwise. And after checking that, we clear that off. We reset all the gold from the minecart back out in the gold area, and we will reset for the next round. We'll play that 3 times, and that will be the end of the game. We'll do a final scoring. Final scoring is going to come from points on buildings, points on the board from waterfalls, points from bridges, and points here from bridges. The points, of course, that you've accumulated through the game based on these silver scoring and silver from the shootout. And then finally, points from this map based on the number of tents that you've had placed out. And I just realized that I never finished talking about the tents. You can place tents out here or out on the map, again, only placing in locations that are adjacent to the boomtown that you are currently in at that time, if you're in one. And at the end of the game, the number of tents on the board will score you a number of points based on how many you have out. I know that's a lot to take in. I'm sure I missed some little things, so I will play through and you can see how it all works. Because you still don't quite understand how the AI plays, and that's going to be something that I am better off just showing you as we play through. But I do want to mention one thing. The AI is trying to get to specific locations, and when they do, that token will flip over, revealing a new location, and each of those locations they visited will be worth 10 points at the end of the game. So right now they're trying to get to Auburn, which is up here in the top left corner. All right, so for each turn, I mentioned the boom and bust system, and the way that's going to work in the solo game is that first we're going to turn over 2 of these Buster cards down here in the bottom corner, and these are going to be locations that Buster is not going to. So we see 2 and 5, means 2 and 5 will definitely not get Buster. Then I'm going to select the action that I want to take. Then we will flip over Buster's card to see where Buster goes. And then finally we will roll the die to see where the AI player goes. But before I do that, I need to choose some cards. I get to keep 4 of these 6 cards. And I don't know that I'm going to be doing much placement, although I should point these out because this is a new type of card that, again, I forgot to mention. These new buildings are actually locations where dudes can be placed. So when we take the place dudes action in space 5, we can also place dudes here, activating whatever it shows. So there's one like that. And here's another one that would give me a build action when we place a dude there. Now, right now, I see that these 4 all tie to that space 1. So I think I'm going to hold on to those 4. Hold on. Yes, let's do that. I'm going to keep those 4. And now, the last thing I should mention here, well, probably not last because I'm sure there are other things that I forgot and that I'll teach you along the way. But anytime we discard cards in this game, I can choose to either place them on top of my deck or under my deck. There is no shuffling in this game ever. And in this case, I care less about the buildings, but I noticed that I got horses in here and tents in here, so movement might be a good option. So I'm going to keep that one on top of the deck. And we'll place the other card down here at the bottom of my deck. Now, I wouldn't mind building some of that stuff before I start doing other things. It is a little bit risky because I see Busters 2 and 5, which means that 3, 4, and 1 are potential spots for Buster to go. 1 already has a Pioneer, so it's likely that that spot could bust. But in any case, I want to build some buildings to start my engine going before I place anywhere else. So I'm going to try for that build space. Then we turn over Buster's next card is 1. So they're going to go there. And then we roll the die for the Hungry Wrangler. And they roll a 3. So they're joining me here. Now, because this is 2 and this is 2, there is no special bust because there is no one space that has more Pioneers. So the bust is going to stay exactly where it is, and neither of our spaces bust. Also, this is something new for the expansion. Anytime that there are 2 Pioneers or more are being resolved or is being resolved, the first player marker will pass. So before we do that, I will pass this first player marker to the AI. So they're going to be taking their action first. And the AI, or the Hungry Wrangler in this case, has a unique action that they will take at each of the locations. In this case, they're doing boom and bust. So for the regular base action on this location, they're going to simply build one of their cards from their building stack. And they're simply just going to be scoring the points on them. They're never going to be using the buildings for anything, so I'm just going to keep a face-up stack of cards right here that I will score at the end of the game. But that's the normal action for the AI at that location. Then we're going to check whether the gold piece is in front of the deck or over here by the hotels. In this case, it's in front of the deck. And in that case, they're simply going to build another building, and then that gold will get moved to here to the hotel for next time. So that's their action. Now my action, I get to build twice, once with a hammer, once with a saw. And looking here, this one's going to get me money in gold for wheelbarrows. This one's going to get me tents for the shovels. This one's going to get me cards or let me spend horses to get more cards. And this one is going to get me money. So I think that I want the money in gold, and I think I want the money changing into tents. So we're going to build those two buildings. So for the hammer action, I need to spend 2 dudes and $2. And for the saw action, again, 2 dudes and 1 gold. Now, anytime we spend gold in this game, it goes into the minecart. Gold is never removed or added from the game or to the game. So my hand stays there. I will build these 2 cards like this and like this. And now because I built a new card that does have a bust track on it, I will place out 1 marker right there. That's the end of the first turn. All of the people come back like that. Buster clears off. We shuffle Buster's deck. This resets to here, but it already is, and this rotates to the next spot. And I just realized that in showing you all of that stuff, I never rotated to the first place. So nothing changes except that she was there, he went there, and then we were both there. So it would have played out exactly the same way, but that was my mistake. Sorry for the bad reset. We turn over the first 2 cards here. 2 and 3 are safe, except she's already at 2. We've got buildings. I'd like to come here to get a bunch of stuff, but coming there right now is useless to me because it's a Barker action and not that shovel action. Starting to move out here wouldn't be a bad thing, except that I have no horses except 1, and moving 1 and then 1 again is not especially great. That said, I can't build anything. I can't really place any dudes because I don't have any. Before we do that though, we do each get 1 gold from this event, like that. Alright, so I am going to take a move because there's not much else that I can do currently. And then Buster will go to number 4. Of course he will. And the Hungry Wrangler AI also goes to number 4. We got a party. All right, so we are busting there. Because we're resolving the same thing together, I will take the first player marker. I go first. Means I only get 1 move action, which messes things up a little bit. Because I was hoping to get down here to Hangtown and get 4 dudes. But now I can't do that. But we always get to choose which of these actions we do first. So I'm actually going to bust first, because then I can move this forward and take 1 more horse. So now I have 2 horses, means my move action I can move 2 spaces. So I am going to move 1 and 2 into Hangtown, taking those 4 dudes and flipping that over like that. So now I do have 1, 2, 3, 4 dudes there. And the Hungry Wrangler is simply going to try to get to Auburn using move action. They're always going to do things in that order. So they're going to take the first outside action and then the inside action. So they can't do what I just did. They're only moving 1 space, trying to get to Auburn. Auburn's up here in this corner. So they're going to move here, getting 1 card, which means we just add 1 card to their face down area. And then they are going to take that bust, getting 1 horse. And I also, when I busted, should have moved that one up 1 as well. like that. And I also did just realize, hold on a minute, that I put out the wrong 2 cards when doing that. These were the 2 that I said I was going to build. And that's still the case, so we're going to do that like that. Okay, then we take everybody back off again. This resets. While I'm doing that, this spins back to that location and rotates again, so she's here. And I just realized I did it again. We did already get that gold. I just didn't rotate the space last time. But again, we were all here, so that didn't change anything. But I do now need to rotate that one more time, and now we should be back on track for the rest of the game. Drawing the top 2 cards for Buster, 5 and 1. And that's good, because I want to go to 1 pretty badly. Huh. Although I have lots of dudes and a tent. And I wouldn't mind winning that shootout. Yeah. But I can get tents like this. No, I'm going there. Buster goes to 3. The Barker area. He goes to 4. Which is there, means that one busts. Like that. So I go first, taking the shovel and the wheelbarrow. Shovel gets me 2 cards into my hand. Another placement, that's the one we saw before. And this one, when we build with a saw, I can spend a card to get a gold. And also this shovel either gets me 1 tent or $2 to buy 2 tents. And I'm not going to spend the money. I'll take the 1 tent. And this card here, plus this here, wheelbarrow gets me 1 gold. And this one gets me 1 gold and 1 coin, sliding that down. So I get 2 gold and $1. Like that. All right, then AI, there are 2 pioneers at that location. This packs back to him. He's going to first take a move action again, moving now 2 spaces towards Auburn. Means 1, 2. He gets 2 dudes. 1, 2, like that. And then they bust again. Now, the Hungry Wrangler will always take the top road unless there's no way else for them to go. So they're going to move up here like that. Nothing happens. And then that is the round. This comes off. He goes there. He comes off. This reshuffles. And I just realized that we didn't take these 2 cards. I said I was caught up, but I was not. So I should have 2 more cards for that. And 2 more cards for me. Here's 2 new cards for me. This is for the Barker action. I get a gold, or I can discard a barrel for 2 gold. And this again for the Barker action. I can kill 1 outlaw for a point, or discard a horse to kill 2 outlaws for a point. All right, we do rotate this like that. This should be reset to here. And now we get $2 each. So 2 for Buster, or sorry, Hungry Wrangler, and 2 for me. All right, 4 and 2 are not locations where Buster's going. Even still, I want to come here because I want to start placing some of this stuff out. And if I bust, so be it, because I'll start moving along tracks. Anyway, Buster is going to go to 3, like that. The Wrangler goes to 2. So as expected, I do bust. And we'll go around here. Now, the Hungry Wrangler is doing a waterfall and bridge action. For the regular action and the secondary action, they do the exact same thing. And they're going to fill in all of their waterfalls left to right before starting to build bridges. And they're always going to take the leftmost token. So this one gets placed in here like that. it gets refilled, and then again it gets taken like that. That's their turn. Now we come to my turn. There's 2 of us, so I get first player back again. And I get to place out dudes and tents. Now we do only have 1 round left, or 1 turn left. I don't expect that I'm buying anything soon. Although getting some dudes would be nice at some point. Yeah, that's okay. I'm going to place out all 4 of those so I can win this shootout. Hold on. Secondary's not bad. But I don't want them to win it either. Secondary action means I don't get a tent and I don't get cards. But I also don't waste so many dudes. And if I put them there, I'm going to shoot first anyway. Let's do that. And then I get to place out some tents. I want to place out a tent here because I'm out on this area right here adjacent to that. And I'm going to place a tent out here so I can get double dudes later on, because dudes are going to be super important for other things in the future. And then we reset for our final turn of the round. This spins back. She rotates to there. Buster comes home. We reshuffle Buster. Not 5, not 3. I kind of want to move around the board. Although building a river or a waterfall, hold on, let me replace that. It's not bad either. But there's still a couple busts before I get there. And I'd rather have more dudes to get more use out of it. So I will... Do I have money? Yeah. You know what? I'm going to go to 5 and take that Barker action, because I might buy some horses, which would be really nice to have right now. Buster is going to go to 4. And the Hungry Wrangler goes to 5 with me. That's sad, but it is what it is. So we're going to bust. This gets passed. He goes first. The Hungry Wrangler will always buy, spending coins or bucks before gold if possible, trying to get horses first and then getting tents if they can't. They still have spaces for horses, so they're going to spend $3 to get 2 new horses. 1 and 2, like that. You know what? I'm going to slide these down like this just so it's easier to see them and there's a little bit extra space. And then they're going to bust, which means they do move to this space and score 4 points. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I also just realized that I made a mistake. When the Hungry Wrangler had built these 2 buildings, every time they build a building, they should be placing out a dude from their player board into one of these locations on the board, and it will place out, starting with location 1, 1 at a time, and then 2 at a time, and so on. And that when they then play at that location later, they will score points. So the Hungry Wrangler did play at that location, so they should have scored 1 point for that dude, and I will fix that right now. Now my turn, I'm also spending $3 to buy 2 horses. I was really hoping for that barrel so I could use that move to go out on the board, but right now that's not going to happen. Instead, we bust. And by busting, again, let me slide those down. This goes up 1, which is nothing. This also goes up 1, and that is the end of the turn. I come back, he goes back, Buster goes back, this resets. But before we move on, that is the end of the first round. So we're going to check the shootout. So first, my 2 guys are going to shoot those 2 guys. So I get 2 points for doing that. Then we compare. The dummy player has more than me, so I'm in second place. Second place gets me 2 cards and 3 points. 1, 2, 3. And I'm pausing again because I made another mistake. I am sorry, I'm catching all the mistakes as we go. And I promise starting in the second round that this will not happen. But When this rotated to this last section, we are required to spend a gold for 3 points. So both Buster and myself, the Hungry Wrangler and myself will have spent a gold, and we should each have 3 more points like that. Then coming back here, because the Hungry Wrangler put nothing in, they will lose 1 dude to a gravestone like that. That is the end of the first round, means we're going to clean up. And to clean up, these guys will come off of there. Those stay. This flips over to the next side, 1849. This slides down and we refill 4 outlaws this time. All of the gold in this cart goes back out onto the board, because that will again change the price of that gold. And then we are ready for the second round, and I promise with all of my promising that I will do my best to make sure that the next 2 rounds play out smoothly without any silly mistakes along the way. All right, so first turn of the round rotating here. They're going to get 2 dudes, I will get 4. Like that. And now let's take a look at what we need to do. I have the money, so I can't build anything. Well, I do have gold. I've got lots of gold, and gold is worth 3 right now. All right. It might be time to start focusing on a river or 2, but building more buildings is not a bad idea. Money for movement, I've been doing a lot of movement, I wouldn't mind that. Horses would also not be a bad thing to have more of, but I can only hold 2 more. Though if I do have a lot of them, I can start spending them for that. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to try. Let's see what Buster's doing first. Not 5, not 3. All right, well, that cements it. I'm doing 3. Buster goes 2. Hungry goes 1. All right, so he's doing Barker. Fine with me. Hungry goes 1. Busting happens over here, which doesn't mean anything because none of us are there. He's going to take a Barker action. He doesn't have enough money to spend 3. But gold is worth 3 currently, so they'll spend 3 like that. 2, take 2 more horses. 1 and 2. They are now full up with horses, and they're going to take a barrel. When the Hungry Wrangler takes a barrel, we roll the die. If it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 6. If they roll a 5, they take the one that's marked by gold, and the gold will simply then move to the next barrel. But 1 means they're going to take this barrel. They don't care what it is. They simply place it face down. That will score points at the end of the game. But because they took that one, they are going to add 1 more outlaw to this shootout. So now there are 5. And that's the end of their turn. Also, because they placed at this location and they have 1 dude, they will get 1 point for that. Coming back to me, I can do a double build, and I will. I'm going to trade 1 gold in for $3, like that. And then 2 dudes and $2 gets me this card that gets me money or tenths when I move. That needs a marker on it. And then the other 2 dudes and a gold will get me this card that when I take a wheelbarrow action, I will get more dudes and horses. That also gets a marker on it. And I need to start busting soon to get to some of that stuff, but not quite yet. Because if I get here and I don't have a waterfall, we're in trouble. But to do that, I need more money or gold. That's the round. Then you go back. He comes off. We reshuffle. This resets and rotates to the next spot. meaning we each get 1 gold. And now gold is only worth $2 each. I wouldn't mind moving around on the map. Buster's going 3, or not going 3, and 5. I'm going to take a shot at 4. I kind of hope I'm busting. Wait a minute. I might wait on that. Hold on, what else can I do? Nothing. That's what I want to do. And I still kind of hope that I'm busting. Let's see if he draws a 4. That would be great. He did. Awesome. We roll a 3. Hungry goes there. Oh, now we're not busting, so that's fine. We are resolving that, so this is passing to me. He's taking a double build action. So the first one again is build like before, and this time I won't forget. They're going to place 1 guy out there. And now the second action, because the gold is over here at the hotel, they're going to build a hotel. I'll just add it to their thing. And this gold moves back over here for next time. My turn, I'm taking a double move action. And I can move 4 spaces. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to be silly, but I'm going to get a bunch of dudes. Oh, actually, each time I move, I get to do this. So first I get a coin or a buck, and I move up to 4 spaces. But I think, no, I don't need it because I could eventually get from here. Let's go. Yeah, let's get lots of dudes. How many dudes do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 dudes. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I'm going to flood my board with dudes. We're going to go 1, 2, 3. Doesn't matter. 4, like that, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 means 4 dudes, and 2 dudes is 6 dudes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then I move again, which gets me another 1 coin. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 like that, which means I get 4 more dudes. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a lot of dudes. And because I've stopped in Georgetown, I'm going to take the shovel action, actually, flipping that over like that. And that means that shovels, I get 2 cards. 1, 2. And I get here a tent. I can spend $2 to get another tent, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna take 1 tent like that. And that's the end of my turn. Yes, good. All right, we come back off like that. We rotate here. So we each get 2 cards. 1, 2, oops. 1, 2 for me. And again for Buster, or sorry, Hungry Wrangler, 1, 2 like that. And we reset. This should have been replaced a long time ago. Okay. Then, Hungry is not going to 1 or 4. I kind of want to bust to start getting places. 1 or 4. Okay. Yes. I could place stuff out. Yeah, you know what? Forget the busting right now. I want to go here. If I bust, so be it. I do bust, maybe. Unless he rolls a 4. He rolls a 1. Okay, so Buster's going there. And I just realized I was a double with the Hungry Wrangler, so that should be up there now. Then Buster's taking shovel and wheelbarrow. That's simple. 2 cards, 1 gold. So 1, 2, and 1 gold like that. We come back to me. There are 2 of us again, so I get that. Now, I'm going to take the boom action first, which is another tent, and then I get to place out dudes in tents. And this is when I wish that I had some buildings that let me place out dudes and or some hotels that I could place into. So this may have not been the right order to do things in, but that's okay with me, because I'm going to place out again in the shootout. If there's 3 here, 2 more get through. I would like to win because that gets me lots of money and some points. Yeah. I'm going to place 4 in the shootout. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to build 2 tents. One of them goes up here in that area, and one of them I will put out here for money later. That's the end of that turn. We reset. Buster comes off. This spins. And doing so now, the AI gets $2 like that, and I get 4, which is great for me. I also did just realize, because Hungry had placed there and there is a dude there, they get 1 more point. 3 and 5 are safe. I'd like to build. I got a lot of dudes and I got a lot of money. But I think I'm going to focus on waterfalls. 2 is not safe. Buster could go there, so I could bust, which is not a problem. I wouldn't mind moving across now. I want to buy some rivers. I've been placing a lot of tents out there, so this tent river is not a bad idea. Although wheelbarrows get me dudes and money. Alright, well, I'm going to go here. Buster is going there. And he is going to 3. So he's busting because that doesn't move. I go first here, building twice if I want to, and I do. So 2 dudes and 2 bucks. And I'm going to take this river and place that, or sorry, waterfall, and place that there. Now, remembering, if this was a river, I would have gotten that barrel, but because this game, you need to land on that space right there to get that barrel. I don't get that, but I will score the 6 points at the end of the game. We'll replace that one. And I think I'm going to take that wheelbarrow one right there as well. Now, I do need to start busting if I ever hope to get to any of those places. Buster's out of space with 1 dude, so they get 1 point. Sorry, Hungry Wrangler, I keep doing that. And they're going to take a single build action. So this flips over like that. They place 1 dude here. And then they bust. There is a thing here, but they never take advantage of their waterfall, so they're simply just going to move to that spot. That's that. This comes off, and this is the 5th and final round of this, or 5th and final turn of this round. We each must spend 1 gold, and we both get 3 points. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like that. 1, 2. Buster gets a 1 or a 3. No, doesn't get a 1 or a 3. Sorry. I want to move. I could build 1 building, but I don't really want to, although a hotel is not a bad thing to have. But that's fine. I want to move. And if I bust, that's a good thing, because it'll get me points and it'll get me closer to a waterfall. Buster's going to 5. And Hungry's going to 4 with me, so we are busting. This is going to pass. And if I've forgotten to pass that at any point, I'm sorry. It's not a huge deal in the solo game, but it is there. Now, Hungry's got a spot with a dude that moves up 1. They're moving once towards Auburn, moving 6 spaces. And Hungry will always stop out of place, so they're going to get 2 dudes and stop in Auburn. And they will take the bonus, which is a saw build. And I'm not sure 100% here whether they build a building or a waterfall. So I'm going to go ahead and do the building, remembering that the boom action, the saw action, is the one that focuses on this gold. So they will build here, and they're going to place out a dude here, and then this will move here. And if I get confirmation that that is incorrect from the solo designer, I will leave a subtitle down below. But now they bust once, which unfortunately gets them to the 6-point space. So they get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. And then it's my turn to move. I get to move up to 4 spaces. And it doesn't really matter which way I'm moving, but I'm going to move towards them anyway. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I get 2 dudes, a card, and 2 dudes. So 4 dudes and a card. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's all my dudes. And then I also bust, getting 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, like that, and that is the end of the round. We reset here and here. Buster comes off. I check the shootout. First, they take out 3 guys. Then I take out the other 2, scoring 2 points. And then because I have 4, I have more than their 3. I do get the first place, which is $4 and 6 points. I get another $4. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points like that. We reset for the next round. Gold goes back out. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, like that. This goes away. We move to the final round, placing out 6 outlaws. Like that. My guys come off of there. Like that. Also, I did just remember, because I moved, I do get 1 coin here. But actually, I'm going to say that I busted before I took my move, which means this went up, this went up, this went up. And then I used that to take a coin and spend a coin to get that tent. Okay. Then, back to the game, third and final round. This rotates. He gets 2 dudes, I get 4. But I think I just placed those 4 there. They should have been there, and now they're here. And Buster gets 2 dudes, but he's only got 1 left, so that goes there. Then, let's see what we can do. I got lots of monies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. I wouldn't mind to start getting some bridges. That's going to score me points off of these. There's nothing scoring off dudes. Horses, I've got 4. That could be nice. Could also build some more buildings, or a hotel would be nice to have with all these dudes. Yeah, that might be what I do. Let's see what Buster's doing first. 3, 2. All right, so 3 is potentially safe, although I wouldn't mind a bust. Buster's gonna place in 4. Hungry's going to 5. He gonna bust, but that's okay. Me first. I'm gonna build twice. So 2 dudes. I don't have any gold, so I'm only gonna build once. I didn't plan that very well, but that's okay. 2 dudes and $2 gets me my first hotel, like that. And the second action is a waste. That was too bad. Okay, I should have waited till I was busting to do that. Then Buster gonna place. Now, the way that Buster places at the shootout is, first they check to see if they're winning. If we are winning, they'll aim for the smallest space. If we're not winning, they'll aim for the biggest space they can place. So in this case, they're gonna place out 5 if they can, and they can. So Buster places out 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, like that. Sorry, I keep saying Buster. Hungry Wrangler. And then, one small mistake here. They do have 1 hotel, and they are allowed to place out dudes there, so they're going to place out 2 dudes there scoring 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. They should also have scored the 1 point for that dude right there. And then they placed out tents. Prioritizing the map from the location they're in, they can place out in 2 locations, but they only have 1 tent. So they'll place one out there. Actually, I'm going to put it there, being smart, because if they move, they can place it in a different location. Also, I just realized, because they're in Auburn, they did score that location. So now they are aiming for Folsom next. And I may be playing on hard mode by giving them that orange space, but so be it. Because they can place in pink from Folsom, so I'll give them the opportunity. Then, that is it for them. No, then they bust, which means they can't go up here. They are going to go down here. So one more dude dies there, and they get 1 tent. Like that. We reset. Like this, Buster comes off the board. This rotates like that. I get a gold, he gets a gold. Now is when I wish I had built. That was bad timing on my part. All right. 1 and 2 are safe. Okay. I don't really want to do that though. I kind of want to move. Although placement's not a bad thing right now. Yeah, placement's not what I want to do right now. Okay. Shovel and potential bust, or shovel and barrel. You know what? I don't mind that at all. Yeah. I'm going there. Buster goes to 3. Hungry goes to 5. Like that. Means the bust goes there. I'm okay with that. Because that means I get a shovel action and a barrel. Shovel's going to get me 2 new cards. 1, 2. And actually, let me show you some of these cards since I've been drawing them and not showing you. This is for a build action. I get to spend a coin to get 2 dudes. A build action, spend a dude to get 2 coins. A move action, a coin and potentially buying a horse. That should be a green one. A saw action, spend a card to get 2 dudes. A shovel action, a horse, or spend a tent to get 2 horses. That would be really nice to have, but it's getting late in the game. Shovel action, 2 coins, or spend 2 cards to get 4 coins. I think those are the new ones that you haven't seen yet. But I took my cards. Now I could get a tent or spend 2 coins to get 2 tents. I'm going to do that because I got lots of money. Yeah, $2 gets me 2 tents. 1 and 2 like that. And then I get a barrel. And that barrel is going to get me a move action. We're adding 2 more guys to the shootout. 1 and 2. I'm okay with that. We replaced that barrel. And I'm going to instantly use that barrel to take a move action. I get to move 4, but I'm not gonna. I'm going to move 1, 2 into the boomtown. And I'm going to take this free tent placement action. Because that's going to let me place as many tents as I want to. And I can go 1 there and 1 there like that. And if I want to, I can place another tent out on the board, which could get me more cards or let me get more points at the end with my gold. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe so. Let's do that. Okay, that is the turn. We reset there and there. Buster comes off. I just realized that was stupid. He didn't take his turn yet. So they're going to get a point. Then they're going to place out dudes. They don't have any. Place out a tent. They're going to place out their second tent right there. Then they're going to get another tent from the boom action. And now they come off. Sorry about that. Resetting, this spins around like that. We got 1 and 2. Also, sorry, I took a move action, means I should get $1 for that move. Then 4 and 5 are safe. I wouldn't mind 4 right now, but I'd kind of like to wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not good enough. I wanted to get a 10th down at that bottom, but I have 2 turns left. No, 3 turns left. 1, 2, 3 turns left. So I can move. I don't get there in time though. Let me try and get some busting done so I can get through here, potentially. First off, we each get 2 cards for this round. 1, 2, and 1, 2. And then I want to build some more stuff over here because I want to start scoring points off of this. So I'm coming here. Buster goes to 1. Hungry goes to 4. So that bust is staying. I go first. I get to build with a hammer. So 2 dudes and 2 bucks gets me either... no. Do I want a river? No, I want a bridge. So I need 3 dudes and 4 bucks. So 2 more. Gets a bridge. Scoring off points or coins right now is not great because I only have 2 bucks left and I don't know how many more I'm going to have. Buildings, 3 each. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gets me 12 points. If I build again, it could be 15. Things out 3 is 1, 2, 3 is 9 points. Horses is 12 as well. Let's aim for buildings. I'll take the buildings one and slot that on right there. Like that. Yes. And then I got a barrel. And I'm going to take the barrel that gets me... No, I've got lots of dudes to place, and I'll probably take a placement action anyway. But if I do that, all right, I'm going to take the barrel. Hold on, we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I've got 4, 8. Yeah, let's do that. Take the barrel that's 2 and a place, and I'm going to use that instantly to take 2 dudes, and I will place them instantly out here in the shootout, like that. And replace that barrel, but also because I took that 2, I need to place out 2 more outlaws in that shootout. 1 and 2, like that. Then these 2 are together, means this passes. Hungry's taking a move action towards Folsom, moving 6. So he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Arriving there means 2 gold and a card. Like that. And getting there flips this for a wheelbarrow action, which for him is just 1 gold, like that. Also getting 1 point for the dude on the space, like that. All right, then resetting. Buster comes off. This rotates. They get 2 bucks, I get 4. Like that. 1 and 2. 3 and 2 are safe. Placing out right now is not a great thing to do. Building. Remember, I'm getting points for buildings. I don't know what to do here. Getting another bridge isn't bad. I've got plenty of stuff to get what I need to get if I do that. That could get me 8 points for another waterfall and a bunch of points, 12 points from that. I think that might be the right thing to do, but... no, I need to take this because I got to put dudes out and dudes here. I have to. Busting's not a problem. Busting's very much not a problem. Okay, then Buster goes to 1. Hungry goes to 6. Now, if Hungry goes to 6, he goes to the location where, whoops, sorry, that should have reset to there. He goes to the location where this extra sort of banner, where the signpost used to be. So he's going to go there. And actually, I may not bust, which is cool. Oh no, I do bust now because the two of us are there. So this spins around like that. He's going to build and get a barrel. Build again is this. Placing a dude. He don't have any dudes, so he can't. And then he will get a barrel. 1. He'll take that barrel like that. Adding one more outlaw to the shootout. Then for me, this passes again. It doesn't really matter. I get to place out stuff. But I'm going to bust first. Because if I bust first, I go here and I get 2 tents. I don't have 2 tents. I only have 1 tent left, but that's okay. This moves up. This moves up. That's already all the way up. Then I get to place out. So I am going to place a tent somewhere. I don't have any gold though. Well, I have 1. So placing a tent. Oh, I already have a tent there, so that's not going to matter. Yeah, placing a tent right now doesn't mean anything except if I get that. But then that's 4 tents or 4 horses, so that doesn't really change anything. I'll place it out anyway because I can. Then I'm going to place 4 dudes here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 2 dudes in my hotel. 1 and 2 like that. And that is my turn. We reset. And this will be our last turn of the game. Rotating like this, resetting that to there, like that. We both are required to sell a gold. I could sell 2, but I don't have them. For 3 points. So 1, 2, 3 for him. 1, 2, 3 for him as well. Also, I didn't give them their 1 point for the build action like that. Buster does not go 2 or 1. Then I need to, if I bust, I get 6 points. Movement right now, though, I only have 4 horses and I can't get to anywhere. Not that it matters at this point on the map anyway, except to get more gold and cards, which does nothing for me. If I build another building here, yeah, I don't have any gold, so I can only build 1 building. If I build another building here, I would get another 3 points. If I build another bridge, I could get another 12 points. I do have 3 dudes, and I certainly have the money. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Buster goes to 3. Hungry goes to 1. So they bust. This comes to me. They're going to simply take the shovel. Well, first get 1 point for that. Take their shovel action, which is just 2 cards, which is meaningless right now in the last turn of the game. And busting once, moving here, which also does nothing. And I'm building. I can only build once because I don't have any gold and I don't have enough dudes. Anyway, 3 dudes and 4 bucks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gets me 1 more of these. This would get me 2 points. This would get me 6 points. That gets me nothing. This gets me 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 12 and that's 12. So it doesn't matter which one. I will take that like that. And with that, we are done the game. So now we move into final scoring. No, we don't. We have to finish the round, sorry. So now we check the shootout. There's a whole lot of guys in there, but let's see what happens. I take out 2 of them for 2 points. Red takes out another 3. Then I take out 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that for 4 more points. Green takes out the last 2 for 2 points. Like that. Then I've got 6, he's got 5, and they've got 3. So I get 10 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Green gets 6 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. And now we move into final scoring. So, first things first, we start with our buildings. 6, 6, 6, 6 is 24 points. Plus 8 for my hotel. Then waterfall and bridges, 6 and 6 for my waterfalls. 3 times houses, 1, 2, 3, 4 is 12. Plus 3 times tents, 1, 2, 3, 4 again is 12. Next we check the map here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 tents out on the board for 18. And then subtracting any tombstones, I don't have any dead dudes, so that's 86 plus 42 gives me a final score of 128. Then for the Hungry Wrangler, buildings over here, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 buildings for 36 points, plus 8 for that hotel. Their waterfalls, they've got an 8 and a 6. Their bridges, they don't have any. If they did have bridges, just so you recognize this, they don't score based on the criteria. They would simply score a flat 4 points per bridge. Tents on the map, they have 2 to score 7. Locations they visited, I just realized they did make it to Folsom, so they have 2 locations, each of which is 10 points, is 20. 3 points per barrel is 3, and 3 is 6. Every $3 is 1 point. 1, 2, 3, and 2, that's just 1 point. Plus unused resources. I'm playing on normal mode, so every 2 resources is 1 point. If it was easy mode, 3 resources is 1 point, and hard is 1 resource is 1 point. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 gold, and a tent is 5, and then horses, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Divided by 2 is 5 and a bit, so they'll get another 5 points for that. Plus 41. And they get a final score of 138. So unfortunately, I did lose the game by 10 points. Now it's very possible I missed some small points here and there. And anything else that I did miss, I will catch in editing and leave subtitles. I know I made quite a few small errors. It's kind of tricky when such a complicated game running in AI and talking to you on camera at the same time. But I hope this gave you a pretty good idea of how the game works. And a score of 138 to 128 is a pretty normal score. And it's a pretty close score too, so I'm pretty happy with that. But I'll talk more about that up top in a bit. For now, while we're here, this is usually where I take a look at components. But again, this is going to be tricky because I've got the deluxe components from the base game and I've got prototype components from the expansion. So I can't really talk about anything all that detailed, except that I do really enjoy the way that this waterfall bridge slots onto the player boards and everything fits in. The way that these waterfalls fit with the bridges over top looks really cool to me. I do really enjoy that. The new card design, I love these new backs. Really, really, really cool. And all of the iconography is very similar to the original game, but just more artwork from Demicho is great. And everything is very easy to follow along with, very easy to understand. So big thumbs up from me for that. But again, that's basically all I'm going to say about the components. Maybe back up top and I'll let you know what I think. Both a little bit about the base game, simply because I haven't reviewed this before, and then finally about the new expansions and how it adds to the game, both to the core mechanisms and to the solo mode. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. Let me first apologize for all of the little misses I was making along the way. As I said, this game does have quite a bit going on, and to be able to be playing while talking on camera at the same time, I did miss quite a few things, but I'm pretty sure I caught all of them, and any that I didn't catch, I should have caught in editing and left subtitles. So the playthrough should still stand and give you a great idea of how the new expansion and the new solo mode plays. So with that said, I've got quite a bit to say about this game. First, I want to talk briefly. I've never done a review of the base game, again, because the original solo wasn't really one that I had any interest in covering. But I just want to talk about, in general, the game itself, what I liked, what I maybe didn't like, and so on. Because I also want to talk about the new solo mode before I talk about the expansion content, because I have also used the new solo mode to play the original base game as well. So let's talk about sort of the old base game and the new solo mode as one kind of thing. First off, I really enjoy the core mechanisms here, specifically that action wheel in the center of the board. And the way that you're sort of selecting actions with the hope that maybe you're going to get 2 actions if nobody else chooses the thing that you're placing, because you're kind of, well, in a multiplayer game at least, reading your opponent to try and figure out where they're going, maybe causing them to bust, maybe causing yourself or trying to avoid busting yourself by avoiding places that they might be going. And this idea of boom and bust and double actions versus single actions and when to place, where to place, and how to place is a really interesting concept that I really do enjoy. And then it sort of fleshes out this bigger game because you've got so many options in this game with so many different ways to score, thinking just about the base game now, because you can place those rivers in for flat points. You can place the bridges on that are actually scoring off of different things that you're doing in the game, which then gives you new focus to follow in the game in different varieties of ways. You can build the buildings, which are giving you flat points, but then in addition to that are giving you abilities when you visit certain sites on that action wheel in the center of the board. Then you've got the whole shootout thing where you're sort of getting rid of resources, right? Because those dudes are how you're also building, and when you place them at that shootout, they're not available for the building. So you're sort of tying up resources at the shootout for big payouts at the end of the round if you're the winner. And then there's the map in the top corner of the board as well, that you're picking up resources as you move around the map, but then also laying tents out on the different regions of the map to score points as well, which are worth quite a bit of points if you can place a lot of tents out there. And then there's this whole sort of dynamic of the tents on the center action board that are giving you double sort of benefits throughout the game as well. And this sort of management of when to put things, where to put things, all of the resources have multiple different ways to be used. And sort of tying them up as one thing doesn't give you the ability to use them for other things, and you really have to weigh out your sort of choices and balance out when they should be used in different ways to get the most effective use of them and to most efficiently build up other resources and sort of develop this engine that builds this gets me this, and ultimately gets me this, which scores me points, kind of a system. And I really, really enjoy that here. It is a really, really cool core game. Now, I said before that the solo that was in the box unfortunately wasn't great. I don't know for sure because I've never tried it, but I was basically told by the designer and several other people to stay away from it. But before playing this expansion, I did have access to the solo mode because it was originally a fan solo mode that's now been developed into an additional new official solo mode. And I played it a few times before it was official as well as now after it's been made official. And I have to say that I really love what the solo mode is doing here. So let me focus first on the solo mode, then we'll talk about the expansion and then a little bit about how the solo mode plays into the expansion. Well, the solo mode plays kind of like the 2-player as far as you have Buster and you have the other player that you're playing against, which in this case is the Hungry Wrangler bot. And it's pretty cool because you start off first off with the idea that you see 2 places that Buster won't be going to. Then you choose a location, then Buster chooses a location, then the Hungry Wrangler chooses a location. So just like you would in a multiplayer game, you do have some ability to sort of think about what might be busting and what might not be busting before you place out your player piece, your pioneer, into the action selection wheel, which is really important here because sometimes it's important to try and make somebody else bust so that they're not going to get something good. Sometimes it's worth placing out somewhere that you know is going to bust so that you can be at the right location, even if it's going to bust, be at the right location so that you can trigger some of your buildings. But also sometimes it's worth it to sort of taunt somebody by playing somewhere. Now in this case you're not taunting anybody because the AI is a die roll. But the point of the matter is, depending on where you place, you're going to get certain actions from your buildings, from the place you're placing. And the timing of things is super important, especially because that Barker rotation is going to be covering things up. So to have this ability to sort of somewhat predictably figure out where the other opponents might be placing and what kinds of places might be busting at any given round is a really, really interesting one, and I do like that. Now, as far as how the AI takes their actions, well, of course it's not smart because it's rolling a die. However, I can say that In all of the plays that I've played this with both the base and the expansion content now, I have to say that I absolutely feel like, despite the fact that the Hungry Wrangler is a random placement, it definitely is scoring smartly. It's designed in such a way that, regardless of which decisions it's making, it's scoring points in interesting ways. And by the end of the game, when I'm doing final scoring, sometimes I see, wow, they've got a ton of buildings and I got crushed on buildings. Or sometimes I see, wow, that river and bridges is filled up and they're getting tons of points. Or sometimes I see they've gone all over the map, they've visited all of the locations, and now they're scoring a ton of points based on where they're going. And the cool thing about this is, all of these different pathways score points. Just like in the multiplayer game, all of these different pathways will score points. Which means that in a multiplayer game, if I'm playing an opponent, that opponent might do a map-based strategy, might do a building-based strategy, might do a shootout-based strategy, might do a river and bridges-based strategy. And here, yes, it's random, but ultimately that randomness is sort of going off in one of these pathways because based on what they're doing, they're going to, say for example, they do the map pathway, they're likely to start getting horses, and those horses are going to start making that map travel better, and then they're going to score lots of points. Right? Or if they start placing tents out on the wheel early, they're going to get lots of resources, and then those resources are going to build up and be worth lots of points at the end of the game. The point is, the Hungry Wrangler sort of gets on a path and sort of goes with it. Even though it's random, it somehow manages to fall into these sort of strategic choices or paths that a normal player would do. And while it is random what's going to happen, you can kind of start trying to block off these things or try to start competing in certain different ways. And there is definitely some interesting thought decision process here about blocking the Hungry Wrangler at certain places or dealing with them in certain ways. But in any case, it always feels fresh and it always is fairly close in points. You saw in this game that I just played, now granted this is with the expansion content, but you did see that it's fairly close, and in this time it was 10 points apart. I have to say, for a game that's all about sort of bluffing your opponents and placing out in different places and this whole boom or bust thing, I feel like it really, really, really does work quite well with this new solo bot. Now, if I was going to complain about anything with the solo bot in the base game, the biggest thing is that this boom and bust mechanic or mechanism is still a little bit underwhelming because in a multiplayer game, there's lots of stuff out there and you really have to be careful about where you're placing because it could be that 2 people are here and 2 people are here, or 2 people are here and 3 people are there, and now that 3 beats that 2. I mean, the larger numbers of people are going to have different sort of probabilities of where things get placed, and it's not always that the place that busts is going to be lots of people. It could be 2 versus 1, 1, 1, right? So you don't really get that with you and AI and Buster because 1, 1, 1 means if you're both in one place, that's a bust. So that's a little bit underwhelming. But let's talk about the expansion now because that's why you're really here. Yes, the solo mode is great. Yes, I enjoy the solo mode. But this expansion, let me tell you, wow. And I'm going to get into why I say wow. But wow, I don't think that I will ever play this game again without the expansion. The expansion to me sort of tweaks all of the little things that I wasn't hugely fond of in the original game or that I thought could have been better in the original game. And it just does a lot of cool new things. And let me go through all of the things that I've seen in this game and that I enjoy in this game. But first off, that first little concern I had with the solo about the boom and bust mechanism. Because in this expansion now you're adding 1 pioneer on the wheel that's moving around all the time from space to space to space to space. Now in the multiplayer game that's fun because it mixes things up a little bit. But in the solo mode and the 2-player mode, this is like game changing and definitely worth having in there because now there are 4 people out on the wheel. And now there's a possibility that 2 people out on a space is not a bust because it could be 2 and 2 and now the bust is tied and there is no bust or it stays in that original location. And that's huge because it doesn't mean that I can't go to a location with 2 people. There's still a chance that even if somebody else takes the same spot that I do, I still get both actions. And they still get both actions. And that's very interesting to me because now the boom and bust means a whole lot more as a solo player or as a 2-player game. And that first small little addition makes huge changes to the feeling of this game at small player counts. And I think that's wonderful. But let's stick with that for a minute because the other huge thing that connects directly to that is the new bust mechanism. And let me say the new bust mechanism is super cool because in the original game, you didn't really want to bust, but there might be chances for you to go to the right location at the right time to get your card actions activated, so you kind of maybe would do it anyway. In this game, busting is often really good for you because there are abilities that will trigger off of those busts, and busts will move you across those tracks. It means the buildings that you're building are leveling up as you bust, and more importantly, you're moving across that waterfall track. And if you do a waterfall strategy with waterfalls that are giving you things and bridges that are scoring points, and you start flying across that board, you're going to get all kinds of stuff and points from moving across there. And how does that happen? Only when you bust and you're not doing stuff in the game. So here's a completely new pathway of decision making that goes across this board that brings in points from what was a negative aspect of the game, at least mechanically, now becomes a new pathway of point making. And that's really, really fun in this because that boom and bust mechanism ultimately is what sells this game. So to turn the other half of that, the bust half, into something worthwhile, that's really, really, really cool to me, and I love it. And while we're talking about that, let's keep going because now I just talked about the waterfall track and the waterfalls. The waterfalls themselves are cool too because in the original game you had these rivers, and all the rivers did was slot onto your track, give you a thing, and give you points. Well, now it's sort of becoming part of this track on the waterfall track. You're not just getting points for building them. You only get the points, you are just getting points for building them. You're not just triggering abilities or bonus actions for building them. You now have to go to the right spaces on the waterfall track to trigger those. And when you do that, you have to kill off one of your dudes and lose a few points to get that. So now you have to balance off whether or not that extra bonus is worth it to sacrifice a guy and to sacrifice some points. But remember, one of those bridges now is giving you points, potentially, if it's in the game you're playing, is giving you points based off of dead dudes. Well, now you got another cool bonus scoring potential, because before the only way to kill dudes was in a gunfight. Now I can intentionally go along the waterfall, killing off dudes, getting points from them if I've built that bridge, and there's another level of point scoring. Just lots of thought going in here. And also when I build those waterfalls, now it gives me a quicker path from those silver point pieces and all the way across the board. And now I'm getting these extra abilities, extra actions even, from these waterfalls that I'm placing that are pretty powerful. But again, only if I'm busting and moving along the track, which just adds more and more and more, and I love it. What else can we talk about? The buildings in this game. The buildings now trigger off of actions instead of locations, which again, I think is brilliant. Because before it was a little stilted that if I wanted to use this building, I had to go here to make this happen, to make that building activate. Well, now there's a way that I can sort of level things upon things upon things. Maybe I get a movement action from a barrel. Maybe I get a build action from a barrel or from a location or from a waterfall, and when those trigger, any cards that are connected to the build action still trigger, even though I didn't go to the action of the build action on that center wheel. And this, again, comboing of this building of engines in the game is something that felt great in the original, and now those engines extend even more and they run even more, and it just feels all that much more fulfilling and satisfying. The little change to the map, placing those overlays on the boom towns, doesn't seem like all that much at first, but you're going to get a big action or 4 dudes when you go to that location if you're the first person there, which is already pretty cool. But then when it flips, the backside's only giving you 2 dudes, but the other option is that when you go there, you get an automatic tent placement, which is huge if you're trying to score points off the map, because I can just go place to place to place and start putting tents down and score a ton of points at the end of the game for having tents out on the map. Really cool. Last thing, the shootout. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something and it'll pop to me while I'm talking, but the last big thing that I can think of right now is the whole new shootout mechanism, or the twist on the shootout mechanism. It still basically works the same as it did in the base game, except now that you're actually shooting the outlaws one by one. And that's really cool because even if you're not going to get big points by putting guys out there to score off of the sort of end of round shootout scoring, you have the ability now to take a few points just by placing out 1 or 2 guys into the shootout. It got to the point in the other game where, well, if I'm not going to win, putting out 1 guy gets me sort of the 3rd place thing or the 4th place thing. Not great, but kind of worth it. Now I get to put out there, snipe some points, and then get that 3rd place thing on top of that. Even cooler. And the new Scoring for the shootout is cool because a lot of them throw in new actions. And a lot of the lower ranked scores give me busts. And busts push me further along those tracks. And it just plays out so nicely. And it just feels like there are so many more choices, but not just so many more choices, but that each choice is increasingly more interesting to make. And it's just a whole lot of fun to do it that way. I mean, just a whole lot of fun to pull all these things together and play with them all together and sort of see how all these interconnected ideas and strategies and actions all tie in and play in with each other as you're playing. And the fact now that the AI does all of this stuff just as well as you do and can play just as well using all of the pieces of this expansion is really, really, really big news. Now, one thing you may have noticed in my playthrough is that I didn't really make it very far along the bus track, the waterfall track. Same thing with the AI, and you might be wondering, how do I ever get to that bridge spot or flip over those waterfall tiles? Well, there is one more small mechanism that I didn't have in my prototype copy, but just like they had hotel cards in the original base game, now we've got hoedown cards in the new game, and that's another building I believe that you can build, and it actually allows you to discard barrels to move further along those X tracks. So that's really cool too, because now I've got another thing where if I start collecting barrels, which is cool, because barrels is a place to go to that Barker or to go to the other one that's covering over the normal boom action, which you might not want to do because you might want to take the regular boom action instead. But now I've got another reason to collect barrels so that I can spend those barrels to move further along those tracks and get a whole lot more stuff along those tracks as I do that and push myself further along. There's just so much good in this expansion. I don't think it made anything worse. It didn't make the game any more difficult to play or more complicated to play. It just added more fun, right? It just added more variability, added more decision making, but decision making along the same lines as the original game just makes it feel more satisfying when you can connect all of these things together and build an engine that really just churns along and scores you lots of points along the way. I'm a big fan of this. I'm very glad that there's a workable, more than workable, a enjoyable solo game in this now. And again, I don't think that I'll ever go back to playing just the core game again after having played this, because I just love everything that this is doing in this box. If this game does look like something you'd be interested in, I will put the link to the Gamefound campaign down below. Click the link, head over and check out the game for yourself to see what you think. But again, strong recommend from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, I do ask that you like, subscribe, and click the bell icon below. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks.